Welcome to creating complex JSON structures in AL. Hey, I'm Eric, and a lot of you has asked for me to do a video on, chapter 2 of JSON. So we have done some stuff. We have created how to create a record, take a record and create JSON, and the other way around, and some other things. But what about actual structure in the JSON? So I thought, let's do a video on that since a lot of you asked for it. And just to spice it up, let's play with jobs. And jobs has a fairly complicated structure. So we got a job, and on the job we have tasks, and within a task we have planning lines, and I don't think Kronos actually has a single posted entry in. We could go into a job journal perhaps and create some stuff, or we can just post what's already there. Yeah, that's fine. So now we also have some posted data. So there's a data structure. So how do we go about creating something like that in JSON? So for that, we probably need some Visual Studio Code, here's my Visual Studio Code. I was trying to say that, and you can see that I just opened the JSON tool that we created in another video. So we have some helper function, rec to JSON, JSON to rec, and so on. So if we need those, we'll grab them from here. Anyway, so when we are creating JSON, you have to think about this as an object model. So there is a certain part of bottom-up creation. So you have to create the inner structures in order to add them to a outer structure. So let's imagine that let's create a procedure here. So let's call that job to JSON, and let's just pass a job number to this one, and we'll return a JSON object. So let's just do a quick recap what's what in JSON. So let's imagine that we are typing JSON here. So a curly parentheses defines an object. Actually, we can do it better. We can just take app.json. That's a perfect example. So the curly bracket defines a JSON object. Within the objects, we can have keys. In this case, we can see ID, name, publisher, ID ranges, dependencies, resource, exposure policy. All these are keys. Keys point to a value. In JSON, there's only a few native values. So we got strings, we got numbers, we got booleans, because those are the native objects in JavaScript, and the J in JSON is JavaScript, and the S also, by the way. But as we can see here, that the value part, so ID and then the value is a string, that's easy enough. But let's take a look at ID ranges, because that's kind of interesting. So you can see here, there's the square parentheses or square bracket, whatever you call it, which means that this is an array. So the same here, dependency, this is an array. And then we can see that inside the array, we have an object. We can also see here that if we look at resource exposure policy, the key, then that's actually also an object. So here is an object within an object. And then the 3 keys in here that are just values. So if we were to create this, we would need to create this object first before we can add this key to the outer object. Meaning that we have to start from the inside out, basically. But let's do that in real life instead of me just talking, because I think it's probably easy to understand. So let's say we got JSON to, and we can just do this quickly and do something like that, and then we will do job to JSON. And what was the job number that we were playing with? This guy. And then we'll do job to JSON. Hang on. A job. Wow. This one returns a, so we'll get this one as well, actually I think we can just do a format around it. Let's see how that goes. Something like that. Okay, anyway, so we have a function that will create a JSON object. So clearly and I will just call, whenever I'm working with JSON object, I will call the variable for JO, so we kind of know what we're working with. So clearly this is what we need. So now we have a curly parentheses. So we could grab the job here. Well, let's see if we can grab the job, record job, and then let's just get that. Get job number. That's very nice. Wow. Oh, this is one of those days where all the keys are wrong on my keyboard. Anyway, so we could now, we could do .add. So we want to add something. And in this case, let's add a job number. Wow. So that will be job number. This is great. So now we have a JSON, right? And we could add multiple fields from the job record to our JSON. But let's say we need to add something about the tasks. So we would say job.add, and then we could go tasks. That makes sense. But what is it that we're going to add? Well, we're going to add, maybe we want to add an array. And the array that we need to add needs to come from somewhere. So let's do one called tasks to JSON here. And we'll pass the job number as a function. So here we need to create this function. And this is where the inside out becomes, because we cannot add something to the outer object before we have the inner object. So we have to crawl down the structure, and let's create a task to JSON function here. And we're passing a job number. Also, in this case, we're returning a JSON array. So let's create and I'll call it JSON array, and not JSON as the name. I always do that for some reason. And that's what we need to return here. So now we have an array, and you can see that when we're adding stuff to an array, what are we adding? Well, here you see we're only adding values compared to when we're adding something to an object where we add a key and a value. So an array is an array of values. And if we go back to our great example here, is that if we were to add some more objects to, and I broke something, we don't care about that. We'll do from 60,000 to let's go to 70,000. So now you can see, now we have an array of objects. We could also have, you know, an array of integers. Now it says, hey, that does not look like screenshots to me. But from a JSON perspective, that's a valid array. So let's go back to this guy. So what is it that we want to add here? Well, I guess we need to add all the tasks. So let's go and create a task, and that's a record job task, and we will do a task.setRange for the job number, and then if task find set, then repeat until task.next equals 0. So we'll loop through everything here. So now we could grab this guy if we really want. Let's actually renumber this into our solution 5100. So we could use this to create and grab. See, we have a function down here somewhere that says rec to JSON. If you haven't seen that video, that might be because you're not subscribed. So go subscribe and check that out. Then you make sure you're not missing something else, and you're helping me along, because subscribers are important in the world of Microsoft metrics. They look at, you know, somebody with a .NET channel, they have 100,000 subscribers, and say, oh, that's a big channel. And then they look at poor little me and all the other PC folks, which you subscribe to all of us, because we need it, because we are tiny tricklets in a big landscape. Anyway, back to programming. We could use this guy if we wanted to. So we could actually say add here, and then we need to grab our tools things. Let's hope it actually works. Code unit, JSON, what did I call it? JSON tools. Anything that stands after this shouldn't work. Oh, I am stupid. That was from a the file was sitting somewhere else. So now I think I broke this. Let's save this. Wow, just because I opened it somewhere else. JSON tools.al. How about now it works. So what we could here is we could simply say tools and then do rec to JSON and pass the task record here. This would probably work. We could actually try it. Let's see how this goes. So, oh, it's already deployed. Let's see if we need to log in. And we got our JSON here. So we got job number and something task. Let's actually put this into. Unfortunately, we are missing we're missing a JSON formatter in AL. That would be lovely if Microsoft would add one of those, but we can use this guy. So if you don't know what's on the screen now, then I could do the whole spiel about subscribing. And this is a Windows program called DevToys, which is really awesome. You can do tons of stuff. But we can see here that we got an object. So the first, at the outer layer, we have an object, which kind of makes sense because we are exiting an object, and this object has two fields, job number and tasks. So if we open this up, and we just close this for a second here, we can see that there's job number and tasks. So tasks, that's an array. And if we open that up, then we can see that there's a bunch of records in here. One for each single task. So that's pretty good. That's actually pretty cool. But the problem now that if we go back to our BC thing, and so maybe we want both the budget stuff, the planning lines, and we want the ledger lines, then those should be under the task. But so now we kind of ruin that by using the generic function here. So what we want to do is probably to create a JSON object here, JSON object, and then grab this JSON object and grab the task thing here. So we'll just add the object, but now we have the opportunity, because this is an object, to add another thing. So now we could do planning line. So you kind of see that now we're getting into kind of the same thing again and again. Planning lines to JSON. And we will pass, let's just pass the task record. And we could do one more and say add ledger entries. Or maybe we should, instead of budget, let's call them actual. And then do ledger entries to JSON. We'll pass the task also. So now, again, we're building from the inside out. So now we need to go down and create a planning lines to JSON, and we pass a task, which is a job task, and it returns, in this case, a JSON object. Or does it? No, sorry. Haha, this needs to return an array. So inside our task object, we want a key. So we want a key pointing to another array. So our task object sits in an array called task. So in this case, we need to do another array. So I'll create another one and let's call it JA again, just to be consistent. JSON array, and that's what we're gonna exit. And we have to do plan line record job planning line, and then we gotta do plan line dot set range job number and task dot job number, and plan line dot set range job task number with the task job task number. So now we can do if plan line find set, then wow, repeat until plan line next equal 0. So again, looping through lines. So you see, now we're doing the exact same thing we're doing here. We're also doing down here. Now we could actually use the trick from before. So we could simply go ja.add, and then let's use the tools rect to JSON and add our plan line here. As soon as we create the tools variable, boom, there you go. So now we have created an array of all the lines, and let's just see if we can. I'm just gonna copy this guy because now you're fed up with me just typing ahead. So let your entries, in this case, let your entries here, and we're gonna rename this to job let your entry, and we're gonna use job let your entry, and I think that's it. So let's run it. I think that's it. Well, it compiled, so that's a good first step. We got a lot of stuff here, so let's grab this and go over here and just paste this in here, and then let's look at what we have. So we got the first thing, and if we now we have the tasks array, and we got budget and actual, and these are empty, but I think that's okay, because let's look at what we actually have. So this is the first task, so maybe we should only send out posting tasks, but that's the first one. So I think we are okay. Now we're getting down to task 1010, and we can see that now we have budget. So there's a key called budget. That's another array, and inside that we have records. We got one at least, and then we have actual, and the same thing. There are, in this case, there are 2 records. So our structure now is fairly complex. So we have an object, and in that we have an array of objects that has 2 keys that are pointing to 2 other arrays of objects with a whole bunch of stuff. And now you can see that what we have actually done here is that we have structured our code the same way as the JSON is structured. So we have all these components saying, hey, okay, we kind of need a job. We want a job to JSON, but in order to do that, we need the task. So we have a function to give us the task, but in order to give us the task, we need the planning line and the ledger lines. So we have functions for that also. And that's what I mean by that you need to structure your code the same way as you would structure your JSON, and then you kind of needed to build it up from the bottom, because we are not able all the way up here on the job. We're not able to add tasks to the job structure before we have built all the other stuff. So we start and then put them together. But by creating separate functions per component in the JSON makes this readable and maintainable. So don't ever try to build this, in one big function, because that's just going to blow up on you at some point. This is very structured, and this also very reusable in case you suddenly need to do something else. So note that even at the top level, I return the JSON object. So if somebody said, "Hey, can you give me a JSON of we are customers with the job information under it?" Well, the only thing we need to do is create another function that then has a key called jobs, and then we are passing the job to JSON. We need to put that in an array, but anyway, within an array. So I think it's pretty neat. Anyway, it doesn't really matter what I think about this. It matters what you think. And for that, we have the comment section down below, and let me know what you think about creating complex JSON structures. We kind of skipped over how all the cool stuff that happened. I'm just going to do this is not a bonus content because this exists in another video on the channel. This is just a recap. But the JSON tool, in case from now we use the rec to JSON function that does some trick with variants. There's also a video on variants. But we use record refs and field refs. There's also a video on that. Then we loop through all the fields in the record, and we have created two functions. One called get JSON file name to get a JSON friendly key as the file name as a JSON friendly key, and then we have a field ref to JSON value that in this case says that, hey, if this is a date, then we're gonna use the JSON value dot set value with a true date. If it's time, then we're gonna do that. If it's date time, otherwise we're just gonna format this to a string and pass it back. I actually think that this function has a bug because we should do field type boolean here, and then go and do something like this so we get booleans correct. So if we looked in here, you see this is actually wrong. That's a bug. That should be fref dot value, and then we'll do v set value b. Let's see how that goes. See if this is better. Now the boolean is correct in the JSON. Bonus content. Anyway, that's it for this video. We already passed way too many minutes, but if you want more, check this one out. That's a good one. The almighty YouTube algorithm has chosen this only for you. So go check that out, and I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.